Welcome to Rise Fuelware. Underdogs rise, justice wins, and every story reminds you, no one stays powerless forever. If you love courtroom twists, neighborhood drama, and real feeling battles for what's right, you're in the right place. Asterisk, asterisk. Sirens were so close, they made the kitchen windows shake. And before I could even step outside, my wife Emily was already holding her hands up, while an HOA officer pointed a gun straight at her face. He barked, on the ground. Now, like he owned the whole neighborhood. I froze for a second because just 10 minutes earlier she was laughing while watering the flowers in our front yard. And now this man-bitch, shining like it was real, was screaming that she was violating HOA security protocols. Emily didn't move, didn't panic. She just stared at him, with that calm look she only gets when something is very, very wrong. I shouted from the porch. "Hey, that's my wife. What are you doing?" He didn't even look at me. "Your wife was caught trespassing on restricted land," he yelled. "This entire block is under HOA watch, and you two are already on our list." "What list?" We'd owned this land for years. Before I could get closer, another HOA guy stepped from behind my truck, acting like he was part of a tactical team. He smirked at me and said, "Tell her to cooperate, unless you want things to get messy." And for the first time, I saw Itha. Fake patch, the cheap vest, the shaky hands. Something about their whole setup felt off. Emily noticed it too. I could tell from the tiny smile forming at the corner of her mouth. The kind she only gives when someone has no idea what danger they're standing in. That's when the HOA guy with the gun shouted, "We're allowed to use force. This neighborhood follows our rules." And Emily finally spoke. Her voice low and steady. "You really don't know who you're pointing that thing at, do you?" He laughed, like she'd told a joke. But I felt my stomach drop, because I knew what was coming. I knew that if this idiot took one wrong step, he was about to discover the kind of secret that doesn't stay quiet for long. As the gun trembled in his hand, Emily slowly raised her chin and whispered a line that made even me freeze. "Put that down, before you find out what Delta Force really looks like." Asterisk. The gun shook even harder in his hand, but instead of backing off, the HOA guy tried to act tougher. "Delta Force. Sure, and I'm the president," he mocked, waving the barrel like he was daring her to move. Emily didn't blink. She just stepped 1 inch to the side slow. Controlled end. The man panicked so fast, he fired a warning shot into the ground. The whole neighborhood lit up with screams and porch lights flicking on. And suddenly, the second HOA officer grabbed my arm, twisting it behind my back like he was making an arrest. "Your wife is resisting a federal order," he snapped. "This is all going to end badly for you." But his grip was weak, like he'd practiced on YouTube, but never touched a real suspect. And that's when the first real twist hit me. As radio wasn't even on. It was just blinking. No sound, no dispatch. These guys weren't cops. They weren't even security. They were pretending. Emily glanced at me, and I knew exactly what she was thinking. Don't blow the cover yet. She was waiting for something, an opening, a mistake, anything to expose them cleanly. But the guy holding me made that decision. "For us," he whispered right into my ear. "Your wife attacked HOA property last week. Today, we end this. End this. We'd never touched anything. We'd barely even knew our neighbors. So why were they after us? Emily heard that part, and something in her face changed. Not anger, calculation. She finally lowered her hands and said, "If you think we did something, prove it." The gunman grinned like he won. "Oh, we'll prove plenty. Starting with the fact that this house is no longer yours. The HOA voted. You're being removed. Removed? From land I literally inherited." My heart slammed against my chest, but Emily just tilted her head and softly asked, "And who exactly gave you that authority?" The man stepped forward and lifted a folded paper from his vest. "This says we run this block now," he bragged. But his mistake was simple. He handed it to her. Emily opened it slowly, scanned the pagand. Then her eyes narrowed on something at the bottom. A signature, a fake one. My father's, a signature of a man who died 5 years ago. Emily lifted her gaze and whispered, "You forged this." And the guy stuttered, not much, but enough. That was all Emily needed. Without warning, she shifted her weight, twisted the gun from his hand before he even understood what happened, and leveled it straight at the ground between them. He jumped back like she'd fired. The second fake officer let go of me instantly, stumbling behind my truck. But Emily wasn't done. She said one quiet line that made both of them freeze where they stood. "You just committed a federal crime. On a Delta's front lawn." Asterisk. The two men froze, like the ground had turned to ice under their boots. Emily didn't point the gun at them. She didn't need to. Just seeing how fast she'd disarmed him knocked all the fake confidence out of their faces. The gunman lifted his hands slowly, his voice cracking. "We were just following orders. The HOA president told us you two were dangerous." Emily stepped closer, calm as ever. "Dangerous," she repeated. "For what?" "Watering flowers. Living on land we own." She lowered the gun to her side, but somehow that made the men even more nervous. The second guy finally found his voice. "Look, ma'am. We were told there was classified activity on this property. We thought you were hiding something." Hiding something? He had no idea how close to the truth he was. Before I could say anything, a black SUV rolled around the corner, fast headlights off, engine low. It didn't look like anything the HOA would drive. The fake officers turned pale the moment they saw it. One whispered, "No, no, no," she said. "They'd be gone by now." Emily locked onto that word instantly. The SUV stopped right in front of our house. A woman stepped out, sharp suit, clipboard, the kind of expression that makes everyone around her feel smaller. She didn't look at us. She marched straight to the fake officers and hissed, "Why is this taking so long? I told you to remove them before the contractors arrived." Emily folded her arms. "You gave orders to armed men who aren't even certified security. To force us out of our home?" The woman didn't answer. She glanced at Emily, then at the gun in her hand. And for a split second, her eyes flicked with recognition like she realized exactly who my wife was. Her voice softened, but not in a friendly way. More like she was recalculating. "Mrs. Halley, we can work this out quietly. Your husband signed non-compliance papers last month. You're being relocated for community improvement." I stepped forward. "I never signed anything." She smiled in a way that made my stomach turn. "Oh, but we have your signature. Twice." Emily exchanged a look with Mia, one that said the same thing she was thinking. "It's another forgery," the woman waved at the fake officers. "Take them inside. We'll handle this in a controlled environment." The men hesitated. "Ma'am, she's Delta," the woman snapped. "She hasn't been active for years. She's harmless." Sin Emily actually laughed. "Just once. Low and cold. You want to test that theory. And then something happened, that none of us expected. A light flashed from the SUV, bright white, fast, and an actual police cruiser turned the corner behind it. Sirens off, but lights on. The HOA woman's face drained of color. The fake officers stepped back like they'd been burned. The cruiser door opened, and the real sheriff stepped out. But instead of looking confused, or surprised, or even concerned, he walked straight toward the HOA woman and said, "Ma'am, you weren't supposed to escalate this. Not tonight." The moment the sheriff said that, the whole street tilted like reality itself didn't fit anymore. Emily tightened her jaw, and I could almost feel the temperature drop. The HOA woman shot him a furious whisper. "You were supposed to stall the neighborhood patrols. Why are you here now?" He didn't answer her. He just looked straight at Emily, then at me, then back at the woman. And for the first time, something in his expression cracked fear, guilt, maybe both. Emily closed the distance between them, stopping only a few feet away. "Sheriff," she said quietly, "why are you coordinating with people impersonating federal officers?" He swallowed hard. "It's complicated." Emily stepped in even closer. "Then make it simple." The woman snapped her clipboard shut. "Enough, Sheriff. Arrest them, both of them. Charge them with obstruction." And he lifted a hand, cutting her off. "No, you don't give me orders. That wasn't the arrangement. The would hit like a punch." Emily caught it instantly. "So you've been working together. Why? What are you trying to take from us?" The woman took a slow breath, then finally faced us fully. "This land," she said flatly, "it doesn't belong to you anymore. The HOA passed an emergency redevelopment plan. This entire block is scheduled for demolition." I felt my knees go weak. Demolition? Nobody told us anything. "That's the point," she snapped. "People panic when you tell them their homes are going to be replaced by government facilities. Easier to move you quietly. Government facilities." Emily's eyes sharpened. "So this isn't about the HOA at all." The woman didn't confirm it, but she didn't deny it. And that silence told us enough. Then the sheriff leaned closer to her, lowering his voice, but not enough. "You promised there'd be no weapons, no noise. If the state finds out, we forced homeowners out." Emily suddenly laughed under her breath, a cold, amused sound. "You think this stays quiet? You think nobody will notice an entire neighborhood disappearing?" The woman smiled, like she'd been waiting for that. "That's why we needed you gone first, Mrs. Hull." Then she nodded at the fake officers. And just like that, both men reached behind their vests, pulling out zip ties. And something worse, phone jammers. Emily inhaled sharply, like she'd just connected a dot. None of us saw. "Wait," she said slowly. "You didn't set this up because of the land?" The HOA woman tilted her head. "No," Emily's voice dropped to a whisper that felt like thunder. "You set this up because you knew I was active." The woman froze. The sheriff froze. Even the fake officers froze. Because Emily had just said the one thing none of them expected to hear. Then Emily stepped back, eyes on the SUV. "You were trying to capture me." And the HOA woman, for the first time, smiled like the devil himself had written the plan. The smile on that woman's face didn't last long, because Emily wasn't looking at her anymore. She was scanning the SUV, the cruiser, the rooftops, the tree line, almost like she already knew what was coming next. The HOA woman folded her arms. "Mrs. Holly, we don't want your husband. We don't care about your house. We only need you. Delta assets are unstable. Your skill set is too dangerous. For a civilian neighborhood, you should never have been released." Emily let out one slow breath. "I wasn't released," she said calmly. "I was deployed." The woman blinked. Deployed. To what? But she never finished the sentence. Because the second she opened her mouth, a small red dot appeared on her clipboard. A laser. From somewhere behind our fence. The sheriff spun around. Who the hell? Emily grabbed my hand and yanked me toward her. Get down. A single shot cracked through the air. Clean, sharp, professional. The clipboard exploded in the woman's splash hands, shattering the metal clip and blowing the papers across the lawn. The woman screamed and dropped to her knees. The sheriff dove behind his cruiser. The fake officers panicked, throwing their hands up. But Emily stayed standing. Enough. Emily shouted toward the darkness. Stand down. He's not a target. Another voice came from the shadows, deep, controlled, familiar, in a way that made chills run through me. You broke protocol, Commander HOA. We had to contain the situation, Commander. I'd been married to Emily for years, and she never once told me that rank. A tall figure in full tactical gear stepped out from behind our fence, rifle lowered but ready. 3 more operators appeared with him, silent, disciplined, real Delta. Not the messy, fake version these idiots played dress-up with. Emily's shoulders dropped just a little. You weren't supposed to interfere, she said softly. This was my cover life, my safe zone. The man removed his helmet, revealing a scar that stretched across his jaw. Your cover was compromised. They identified you weeks ago. We intercepted. Chatter someone leaked your status. They were planning to extract you tonight. He nodded at the HOA woman. Using amateurs. The woman's face twisted with rage. Do you know who I work for? Do you have any idea what you're interfering with? This entire operation is the operator didn't let her finish. That's classified, he said. And you're done. 2 Delta soldiers moved in, cuffing the fake officers and seizing their gear. Another secured the sheriff, who didn't even fight. He just mumbled that he didn't sign up for this level of trouble. The HOA woman tried to stand. You can't arrest me. I have immunity under Emily. Cut her off. With a single line, not from us. And for the first time all night. The woman looked genuinely afraid. The lead operator turned to Emily. Orders from command. Your 2 return to base. Immediately. They think the leak came from your last mission. Emily shook her head. Not until my husband is safe. He stepped aside, eyes steady. Already handled. This property is now under federal protection. Nobody touches him. And then he nodded at Miyamo. Respectful. You married a legend, sir. My chest tightened. I looked at Emily, really looked at her, like I was seeing her for the first time. You were protecting me. This whole time, I whispered. She took my hand, her voice gentler now. I wasn't hiding who I was from you. I was hiding what people would do to get to me. They escorted the HOA woman and the sheriff into the SUV, both protesting, both ignored. The fake officers were marched into the cruiser. The neighborhood lights slowly dimmed as curious neighbors stepped back into their homes, and for the first time since the chaos started, the street was quiet. Emily turned toward me. I'll be gone a little while, she said. But when I'm done, this ends for good. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. You come home safe. That's all I care about. She leaned her forehead against mine. Always. Then she walked toward the Delta SUV, doors opening automatically for her, like they'd been waiting. Before she got in, she looked back at me and said the line that would stay with me forever. I fight for this country. But I live for you. The SUV pulled away, the convoy following, leaving nothing behind but quiet wind and torn HOA notices scattered across my lawn. And as I watched them disappear into the night, I understood something deep. They came to take my wife, But they didn't know she wasn't the one who needed rescuing. She was the storm. And tonight, the storm won.